I think sometimes we overcomplicate things. My day is remarkably similar to every other phase of my life, right? Where it's radical prioritization and planning. We have X amount of hours we are willing to work, and more specifically, during the season of life we're in. When I am in Miami, where home is, I'm extremely disciplined with my time. So I wake up, I choose to get the kids up and make breakfast and take them to school because it's a luxury I always knew I wanted and I planned for. My 20s were pronouncedly obsessed with a couple titles, number one in the world at KW and 30 under 30. And I got them both in the same year, and it was the most empty and meaningless feeling of my life because it didn't change me. And actually what forged me was the process to get there.
Welcome to the Jeff Sutherlin Show. Let's grow today as we learn from decades of real estate and leadership experience.
We want you to know that when you log into this show, you're going to get authentic conversation. We're going to give it to you straight, and it's going to be real.
Hey everybody, Jeff Sutherlin with my business partner Chase Waldron on the Jeff Sutherlin Show. Today, I have a very, very special guest. I'm very honored. We have the CEO of eXp Realty, and boy, talk about a leader, and we're going to get to him very quickly. As always, we like to talk a little bit about what's going on in Phoenix. I've been telling everybody for months, this is a time to buy, because what's happening in Phoenix is one thing you got to remember. When you're a buyer, you can never time the bottom of a market. It's very difficult to do that. And right now we have prices that are slowly declining in Phoenix, and we have rates that are trickling down. And depending on what happens, especially next month with the Fed, there's tremendous pressure on that situation to continue to lower rates, which has an indirect correlation to mortgage rates. We may see the absolute best buying opportunity in the last quarter of the year in Phoenix. And I'm very tied in with analysts that have been running the Phoenix market for 20, 25 years. These people are from the Cromford Report, and I get local updates from them all the time. And everything's pointing in the direction that things might turn around in January or February. So we still have time to get in there and get tremendous deals. The last thing I want you to know is Chase and I have been putting people in deals with new homes, getting them in at 3.75 fixed, 3.99 fixed. And guess what's going to happen? If the rates continue to trickle down, those introductory rates or those rates, fixed rates from builders, they will start to go away. So I really hope that you entertain, if you're putting it off thinking maybe there's a better day down the road to buy a house, now's the time. Now's the time to buy a home. Chase, what say you before we hit up Leo today?
I think you nailed it, Jeff. I mean, like you said, man, we're seeing a lot in the new build space. And like you said, the anticipation is if those rates start to trickle down, brings more people into the market, and then these new builds won't have to offer such great incentives because people are going to be coming in anyways. That was a decision I made as well. I decided to get into a new build to try to take advantage of these incentives. They're there now, and so it's a beautiful thing for people out there looking to buy.
Awesome. Well, great. Let's shift over to Leo, our guest. I'm very grateful for his leadership in our company. He's paved the way for us to be successful, which I love. He is the CEO of eXp Realty, and this is a company that has produced more transactions than any other company that I'm aware of on the planet. I think we produced over 350,000 transactions in 2024. I bet Leo knows the exact numbers. There has never been such a story in history of real estate brokerage as eXp, not to my knowledge. And now we have at the helm, Leo Pareja. How does that feel, Leo? And how did you get to this point in your career? I know you didn't get here by accident.
It's something that I don't take lightly, and I'm super grateful for. So you are correct. We sold 350,000 plus homes in the United States. As a global organization, we've done 518,000 properties in 2024. So that is a huge context. A good chunk of that is Canada. So Canada is our second largest market. But the other 25 countries we're in are coming up strong. So to clarify, because when someone hears the statement you just said, they instantly go, well, Keller Williams is bigger and RE/MAX are bigger. Those aren't real estate companies. Those are brands, right? No different than Burger King and McDonald's are brands. And when you walk into any of those restaurants, there's typically a plaque on the wall that says the owner of that store or group of stores, right? So franchise is something that exploded in this country right after the 50s. And it was an expansion way without having to deploy massive amounts of capital. right? So most companies are either corporate owned or franchise. So like a pretty well-known non-franchise brand that people are familiar with are like Chick-fil-A or Chipotle, right? Those are corporate owned versus McDonald's and Taco Bell's and Wendy's are all franchise, right? So in real estate, we were the first national company to scale the way we have that's fully corporate owned. So, our peer set is really Compass, Fathom, the NRT portfolio of companies inside of Anywhere that are corporate owned. So like the Coldwell Bankers, Berkshire Hathaway has a corporate owned store model, but with the vast majority of national, brands being franchised owned. And so when you look at the real trends, agent count or transaction count, we dwarf everybody because like number 2 is half our size in both transactions as well as agent count. So when I say we are the single largest real estate company on the planet by transaction count and agent count, I'm specifically referenced on a single platform where everything is company-owned stores, if you will.
That is amazing. Yeah, to think about the number 2, the runner-up is half of what we've done, man. That's amazing. Leo, I just want to say, it's great to have you, man. It's great to finally meet you. What is the daily what does a daily day in the life of Leo Pareja look like, man? I mean, we're curious. What do you do on a daily basis, man? I know you're out there, you're busy. What does a day look like for you?
Yeah, so the answer is it depends. And the thought that I will share that I think is what people will probably resonate with is in my journey. So I've now ran 10% companies, 50% companies, 300% companies. Those were all companies I founded in size. And then this one, on an employee basis, not supporting agents in the field, it's 2,300 plus. So all types of sizes, and then supporting 80-some thousand agents across 27 countries. But I think sometimes we overcomplicate things. My day is remarkably similar to every other phase of my life, right? Where it's radical prioritization and planning. We have X amount of hours we are willing to work, and more specifically, during the season of life we're in, right? And so what do I mean by that? When I was 23, it was 12, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was not sustainable to a like comparable to my life today. And I did it for like a decade. And what I did there is I created a life that was not normal. And by the way, it was on purpose, right? Not sustainable today. But again, at 23, the advantage I had was energy, right? Like you could do that and still wake up the next day. I met my wife super early on, and she's my partner in everything we've ever built. She ran the businesses and built the businesses and founded the businesses with me. But we didn't have little ones. So like we could order takeout to the office at 8:00, and we were still, being able to pour into each other in our personal relationship. But now we have a 10 and 8-year-old that would have severe therapy needs if we did that, right? So now we turn it off. So to answer the very specific question is, when I am in Miami, where home is, I'm extremely disciplined with my time. So I wake up, I choose to get the kids up and make breakfast and take them to school because it's a luxury I always knew I wanted and I planned for, right? Super grateful that we walk, we can walk to school. It's like 2 blocks to one of the best schools. We pick the house based on that. That we don't waste too much time in the car. Then I go to the gym, and then I come back and I eat the same protein shake every single day. But my day starts at about 9:30 East Coast. And I run hard till 4:45. And I normally either don't eat or eat very quickly, the same thing. But I spend 50 to 70% of my time doing exactly what we're doing. And I call it one-to-one or one-to-many. So whether it's just one-on-one and I'm helping you dissect a kind of decision tree in your business for one of our top producers, solo or our team, or I'm helping you attract somebody that, needs to hear from me, or I'm creating content with you guys right now, right? I believe that is the highest and best impact I can create for the entire organization, right? So the reason franchise existed when they flourished, and really in like the 70s and 80s, if we look at our industry, right? C21 was undoubtedly the trailblazer. Then Remax moved their cheese by creating a 100% model. Then Keller Williams created a hybrid. So they've been one-upped, but that was kind of the sequence of national franchises. It was because that was the only available technology to do what they needed at that point. So if you think about it, whether it was flying up to New Jersey to get the gospel from anywhere or Realty, or going to Austin or going to Denver. These leaders who bought these franchises would have to traverse space and time to go get the systems and philosophy from the founder/leadership. Because of high-speed internet, like, think about that. In the 80s, you and I would not be able to do this together right now in the middle of the morning or afternoon on a Thursday, unless you guys flew to Miami and I held court, right? Which would be infrequent and very selective, meaning that a lot of people did not have access to me. Today, while leading the largest company on the planet from an agent count standpoint, I believe I am in a digital relationship one-to-one with all of our agents. And oh, by the way, a couple 100,000 more that are not with us, who get to consume what I think, what I stand for, quite opinionated most of the time, not shy about it. And so there is no like, I wonder what he thinks about this. Like, somebody will ask me and I normally will rant about it on the internet, right? And again, it's not unique to me, right? It's the time and space and the medium of how we consume information. And so, in the franchise system, I think there's a lot of layers because, a franchisor typically sells a region and then the region sells a store. And again, fill in the blank for any model you want. And so like the quality control, the process is somewhat adapted to the local stuff versus for us as a national company, I'm like, hey, we're no longer doing this. And I'm going to roll out forms in all 50 states. And it's now the law of the land for us. And so I think even though we're massive, we're actually faster and more nimble than most because we are not decentralized. Like, we don't have the decision-making process isn't decentralized.
That's fascinating. Leo, you're talking about how your intention is really around that one thing, right? And I think in your world, the one thing is you're talking to agents, you're attracting high-level talent, you're developing talent, you're winning digitally. And in order for you to do these things that are high growth activities all day, I would think you must have a superb senior staff. I would think that you just have ballers. I mean, these people must be amazing. I know one of them because I used to work with her for 23 years at Holly. She's amazing. I mean, can you talk a little bit about just the talent you have on your bench that you work with?
100%. So, sometimes a startup entrepreneur will ask me, what's the difference between running this business versus a startup? And my favorite and absolute, always answer is the talent I can hire, right? Holly's incredible and my right-hand person in all things policy and writing the agreements. Like last summer when we came up with the buyer agency agreement, that was like me and Holly. Obviously, there were lawyers who ratified it and said we were going to roll it out, but it was like blank sheet of paper. What should be on here? Which, think about the difference of leaders, right? Like, I don't need to have committee meetings about committee meetings because I actually did this for a living. So I have the context of what your life looks like. We actually are quite proud that we were founded by a producer and currently run by another producer, and that everybody, like Wendy Forsythe was a phenomenal real estate agent. Holly's a third generation broker. Grandparents, Brian Ellington, who designs our courses, was an agent. Amy Weaver, who leads growth, was a high producing agent and a team leader of an office, right? It is a difference when it's ingrained in our DNA, right? So it makes decisioning much faster. When somebody says something, I could either go, that's a really good idea, or, hey, that sounds wonderful, but it's actually not legal in 32 states. I get your reasoning for asking, but it just doesn't work at scale. And so what I think one of the outcomes of that is I get to actually explain my no, which, basic human psychology, if I can just Chase, if you say, I want to do that, and I'm like, no. And it's like, I slapped your hand like you're a toddler. It's dismissive, right? It's invalidating your thought. Like, you wouldn't have just asked or reached without context. You really wanted something. So a lot of times I can hey, why do we pick that vendor or that vendor? And I can sit down with someone and explain to them. And I think it validates the relationship and the opinion.
Yeah, when I think about the people we get to work with, it blows my mind just the experience that they have. And, I always tell people, listen, we're not led by some ivory tower leaders that really are not that don't really understand this business. They've been in it for so long. And that's why I feel so secure. I feel so secure about the daily operations, where we're heading as a company. And you guys, just even the NAR settlement, right? You guys nailed that, man. You guys were out there not just staying compliant with the NAR settlement, but also going went above and beyond for the protection of the consumer as well. And I just think you guys nailed it on that particular project.
And I appreciate that. And to me, it's like the most example of a finished product, right? Like we didn't exactly know what we were doing. It was absolutely terrifying. But we were sure about our conviction for doing what's right. And I can tell you that was probably from a leadership standpoint, the noisiest, most terrifying time of my career, right? Because, I think overnight I became the whipping child of the industry and created a lot of vibration. And it's interesting. There's a concept that I've been talking about a little bit, and I shared on another interview or stage recently. My son is 8. Or was 8, and he'll be 9 sooner than later, but he was 8 when this happened. It was recent. It was at a jiu-jitsu tournament. He's in love with the sport. He does it like 6 days a week right now. And he was competing in a tournament, and he's a little guy. He's like 10th percentile, right? So he's 8 and he's 59 pounds. And he just had kind of mowed through his division, and he was up against the finals for gold. And we finished his match, and then I was like, hey, because you couldn't see the bracketing before you get to the finals. It's like, let's go see the other kid. And this other kid comes onto the mat in a gorilla stance on his knuckles, destroys the other kid. He's got a shaved head and like something cut into it, like looking like a lightning bolt. And he starts pounding on his chest as he wins in like 30 seconds. And my little guy got a panic attack. And he wanted to run to the car. My adoring wife of him was like, let's go, boy. I'm like, no. And I said, we're having a conversation. And I sat down with him. I said, Mateo, you can quit jujitsu and never do it again. And he was like, okay, good. I said, after this fight. And I said, you owe him the respect. You're not going to let him get a pass for the gold. If you go in there and pull guard and just tap, we're still going out for ice cream. I'm not going to be mad, but you're going in there. And it was a really cool teaching moment where I got to say, the feeling you have right here. And he's like, yeah, it's in my belly. Like he could describe it. I said, this is actually courage, right? I think when you watch the movie or you read the book, you think courage is this overwhelming confidence. It's actually in the moment, still moving forward with paralyzing fear. And it was really cool because like I think of leadership and I talk about leadership all the time, but like seeing it, and I calmed him down and he's like, you're doing it or you're doing it. And then he went and he was ahead on points and lost in the last 10 seconds on a technical submission, but he had the kid beat. Then we find out the kid is homeschooled and trains 8 hours a day, right? Then he found out he was competing in no-gi and like did the whole tournament, got every gold medal that day. But as soon as he came off the podium with his silver, he smiled, he goes, when's the next tournament? So that moment was like that, right? It's like, hey, I've never been sued for billions of dollars before. I don't want to do it again, right? And as we were coming up to the final date, 50 states were doing 50 different things. And that's where Holly called me. She's like, I think we need to change policy. And I said, yeah, I guess like looking at the downside and the upside and being a national company, we had to make a decision. And I think that's part of it. Like once we made it, it was my problem, my decision, right? No matter who came up with it, if I signed off on it at the end of the day, I was going to have to take the arrows. Yeah.
Yeah, man. What a story. I mean, first of all, I want to share that. So my son and I got our black belts in Kung Fu, and it took us 7 years. And to get through all the brown belts, it was like a 3-year process. So we got halfway through and he's like, Dad, I don't want to do this anymore. And I had the same talk with him. I'm like, you've gone 6 years and you're going to hang it up now. You got to see this through, And it was one of the best, parental moments I've ever had. It sounds like you nailed it as a dad that day. And back to the whole NAR thing. What I loved about you guys, Leo, is you guys owned it and you didn't shy away from it. You owned it and you led from the front and you were willing to take arrows, and the truth always shows up. Right? The good things that we're doing were starting to show up and reveal themselves. I was so proud to have you guys leading us. Next quick question before I hand it over.
Before we move on to that, because again, it's like the finished product. It was terrifying. It was terrifying. I lost sleep for like 2 weeks where I would wake up in night sweats where I'm and like once we got past that tipping point and then other like just about every other company copied us and states starting adopting our forms. I mean, I remember Glenn calling me and goes, I'm glad it was you because I don't have the stomach fortitude that you must have had. Right. So,
Incredible.
and that's part of being a human being too. I always tell you guys, I have the right to be wrong. Right. If I had completely, missed the mark, I would have apologized and rolled it back. But I was really, really convicted on how I protect the consumer and you guys, right? Because that was the other thing. It's like anytime a state's like, well, we're not going to do it. I was like, cool. Will you write me an indemnity? They're like, no. Then why I'm not using your form? I don't think I can defend this in court next time it happens.
Yeah, exactly. One quick question in addition to that. So we're really known as like the Netflix of real estate. We're a category creator. We created the cloud brokerage space. And after all that growth that we've achieved, especially like in the last 10 years, because we've grown explosively, we still see all these major leaders coming over to our company. Why are these leaders continuing to come?
Yeah. So I love the Netflix analogy. I'll also throw in the Meta one and Amazon, right? It is a new category. And in most of those, if you look at any of those comparable examples, what are they? And the answer is a platform, right? And I'm very clear that, and I've kind of distilled it down to like 11 or 12 words, depending on whether I throw in an of or not. But we are a platform that allows entrepreneurs to build whatever size dream they want. And it's a very intentional sentence because you can come here and sell 12 homes a year. And that is amazing for the season of life you're in, for the life balance you want, for the availability of being present in your family and or revenue you want to create. If you want to come here and give Parker Pemberton a run for his money, he's on track to do 2,000 units this year and spread all over the Midwest. If you want to come here and attract 0 people, you are in the majority. If you want to come here and build a revenue share business that rivals and dwarfs most franchise ownership groups, you can do it, and you can do it much faster, stronger, better, right? So to that point, we've had entire cloud-based brokerages come over. Right, like Canzel Real Estate was one of the first similar cloud-based, in her onboarding press release. She got to 20 states and like 600 agents. And she said, when I saw what Glenn did, I was blown away and knew it was the future. Only, regret was not coming and building here because it would have been faster, stronger, better, right? And in the analogy of Netflix, every new content distribution platform will look more like Netflix than Comcast or MGM. True or false, right? But none of them will get to scale. So as long as Netflix doesn't take their eye off the ball, right? If you look at market cycles and disruption, disrupting a category king never, and feel free to contradict me, has happened by a copycat of the disruptor, right? So Hulu was capitalized with an order of magnitude more money than Netflix was. And it just sold off for parts to Disney, right? But every new streaming service will look more like Netflix. But look at the transformation Netflix has gone through, right? It started as a DVD mail company to then a streaming company to a content creator and owner to now streaming live sports, right? So, in business, the David Goliath parable does not normally go that way, right? Normally what happens is Meta observes and either attempts to buy. It's like, okay, Snapchat's cool. Watch this. Stories, right? TikTok's blowing up. Watch this. Reels, right? It's a feature that can be additive to our platform, or you just truly ignore it and go, no product market fit, not in our vertical, move on, right? And for us, that's, hey, that sounds cool. Or I don't need to have a response to a flat fee brokerage because it's a different value proposition. I don't have to have a response to an uncapped model because it's a different value proposition. And I think where most people in business screw up is by trying to serve all people in the sense of like no specialization, no niche, right? And our niche is I like to be in business with the most entrepreneurial business people in real estate. So do we have Class A space all over the country? No, we do not. It's a feature, not a bug, right? And identifying the differences like, well, you don't have that. Like it was never meant to have that. It's not part of the model. And that's okay, right? Because, you're capped at 16K. I'm not going to take 80 if you sell more houses. But you get a Regis membership and you can use this physical footprint that's substantially larger than the competitor, but you have to be okay with that.
Yeah, that's a great response, man. Just knowing that, hey, you have the niche, you have people that you're searching for, that entrepreneurial individual, it's not always, nowhere's obviously a good spot for everybody, right? So, yeah, that's good, man. And you, Leo, we love having you as a leader at the helm of everything. I mean, you're a big thinker. You're, always trying to stay ahead of the industry. The corporate, is always providing solutions for us and whatnot. And where do you see EXP going? I mean, right now, I don't know the exact number, but we were kind of around 90,000 agents, and we're talking about, I mean, what does it look like here in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do we see us going?
Yeah, I answer it the exact same way, Chase. So I think, I talk about the progress principle a lot. So human beings, there's a lot of psychology and thesis around this, that the one thing that we can kind of point to across society, age groups, human beings, is that progress is what creates joy and happiness in the brain. Above all, it's distilled to progress. That's why going to the gym, actually really reduces endorphins and all that kind of stuff. And even learning an instrument or how to dance or anything like that. So the Industrial Revolution did a lot of damage to the human psyche, because we went from taking a raw piece of metal to, a tool or a piece of wood into a piece of furniture. Like the start to finish cycle is really important. And so there's a couple of ways to think about that. One is, we always need a goal. And at the same time, the goal is irrelevant, right? My 20s were pronouncedly obsessed with a couple titles, number 1 in the world at KW and 30 under 30. And I got them both in the same year. And it was the most empty and meaningless feeling of my life, because it didn't change me. And actually what forged me was the process to get there. And having that unlock I'm super grateful I got it super young. Because I'm not missing the forest with the trees. I will never miss my kids' stuff. I will never take that call at 9:00 unless it's urgent. And Glenn, and by the way, I can call them back at 9:30 when my kids go to bed. It's not that serious. So to answer your question, Chase, the actual only lens I look at is creating the most agent-centric company on the planet, and removing as much, and I do that by removing as much friction from your daily workflow, right? It's actually very technical, airy-fairy, aspirational. So what does that mean? I pay you faster than any competitor. I want to onboard you faster. I want to return your broker questions faster. I want to make it so frictionless that it almost feels invisible to be here. And that if behind my back, someone is wooing you and offering you stuff, and you start putting on a checklist of pros and cons, you go, it's just impossible. I want it to feel like going back is like asking you to give me your iPhone and I give you a landline back, where it's it is outside of the realm of possibility, not emotionally or how I make you feel, but actually the platform experience, right? And so that's a super long answer to say aspirationally, directionally. I think the lily pad that we can all rally again around is we want to be the single largest brand that's ever existed, right? We're the single largest brokerage. So it's kind of hard to okay, where do we go from here? I think that's probably 180, 190. AW and Remax probably both peaked at those numbers globally. So 200 sounds like a very nice round number. And that doesn't mean we stop there. That means that's the next lily pad that we can all rally. And so when Wall Street asks me, I say, I don't care if that's in 3, 5, 7, 10 years, or if we ever get there. As long as we continue being the most agent-centric company on the planet, we have a sustainable model that enriches your lives, and it's virtually impossible to compete with me because I built a better mousetrap, is how I think through every single day.
That's great. And I have a follow-up question just for something else that you said earlier when we were talking about, chasing the title, and it was the emptiest part of your life, you know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of agents, a lot of people in general, right, are chasing the title or a certain amount of money and whatnot. And is that how, you mentioned obviously not missing your kids' activities, being there for your family? I mean, what advice would you give people that are maybe in that right now, that are looking hey, they're, it's all, call it monetary. They're chasing a certain dollar value, you know what I mean? And from experience that, hey, that's not really going to give you what you're looking for. What advice would you give those individuals?
Yeah. So first of all, give yourself some grace. This is your first time living, so don't beat yourself up is the first thing I would say. The second one is to just have an honest conversation with yourself. an exercise that I do myself and I teach my kids is to actually do something extremely drastic and draconian in your brain, which is like, did you die? Right. So first of all, like if the answer is no, because you're here, it's not that serious. Second of all is let's zoom into the last breath you take. It does not matter. It just doesn't. Right. Jeff, as a pastor, he can relate to this. Like there is hospice data that says the only two regrets at the end of life is I did not spend more time with people that I care about, or checked off a life experience, like fill in the blank. I want to sell more homes. I want to be an icon agent. I want to get a number. Like none of that is anywhere close to a last breath. And I think it's about being surrounded by the people that care about you. And the only reason they do that is because you've poured into them. So if you can go there, which is kind of dark, it's actually super easy to prioritize.
That's great
Absolutely.
advice.
Yeah, great advice. And you were right on the money on that one. Let's talk about what you mentioned before about taking care of the agent. And I want to talk expressly to the NPS score. It's one of the best things I love about our company because I think EXP sees us as a customer. And I think that culture is all over our country or our company, Leo. I think the better EXP treats the agents, the more that value trickles down to the consumer. And so can you talk about what that NPS score is and why it's so important to us at EXP?
Yeah. So the NPS stands for Net Promoter Score. It was invented by a gentleman named Fred Reichheld while he was a consultant at Bain & Company, and it became like this industry phenomena, like theory, not industry, because it's in all of them, which is a super binary rapid feedback loop, normally from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, right? So you've all experienced it anytime you've called a major corporation, like Apple built its entire customer service thesis on it. Enterprise Rent-A-Car, like some of the most legendary consumer brands have made it foundational. Yes, we're obsessed with it. Fred Reichheld, the father of NPS, is on our board and I interact with him. So I've gotten it directly from the horse's mouth. So what it means is someone passive, which is 80% of people who experience, and think about this in your businesses. A passive person gives you a B. It's like C to B, like cool. Passive means you are neither going to talk shit or hype somebody up, right? It's like if you do a deal and you're passive at EXP and they're like, what do you think about EXP? It's cool. And you just kind of move on, right? A detractor is going, it sucks. How do you like your broker? Right. And a promoter is like, you got time to get coffee? Let me tell you all the things that keep me up at night of how much I love this product or service. And like, think about it through your personal experiences. What are your favorite products and services? A lot of the times it's not the quality per se, it's the experience as well. Right. And so like, and again, like I'm a Apple fanboy, not because I like Steve Jobs. I actually think Steve Jobs was kind of a shitty human being. If you've read his biography, he's not a good father, not a good husband, kind of a maniac manager, yelled at people. Like I don't prescribe to any of that. But if you look at the product that the company built, it's a super seamless ecosystem. So frictionless completely, right? Getting in a phone, I'm literally talking to you on an Apple PowerBook. I have AirPods, the phone, the wallet, the watch, 5 bands, the iPad. I'm just looking around, right? Like in this ecosystem. But like to buy stuff, it's super simple. To connect them, it's super simple. Like I ordered AirPods the other day and look, by the way, they didn't charge for that, right? It's like, sure, we'll drop it off at your house, logoed. I'm like, but again, like we have so many of these products in the house. Is like, is that mine? Is that my wife's? Is that my daughter's? Like, I have the big ones in my backpack for airport. But that is a seamless ecosystem. And it's not just the products. It's, someone stole my credit card while we were traveling last month, and brilliantly, to their credit, they created an Apple ID account. And in a 2-week period, put $3,100 through it. So when my credit card bill came up, all I saw was Apple ID. And I give them a car payment in like, it's like my wife, my kids, my parents, my aunt. So like we have like 7 accounts. And I literally spent an hour and a half on the phone with Apple going, is this on my account? Is this? And they're like, well, we can't tell you who did it, but we can tell you their last name is Pareja, right? And so it was like $3,100, like polite, helpful, followed up with an email and a case number. I didn't even have to call my credit card company. Like the only reason I called my credit card company was to cancel it and get a new one. They're like, give it 48 hours, it'll drop. Like they took care of it. Right. And so that reinforces an experience that makes me even more loyal. Right. And so enterprise rental cars the same way. I'm using Apple because you asked about NPS, because they're actually the case study at Bain & Company of the best users of, and like if you buy something from an Apple store, there is no commission, right? And so there is a endless amount of time. They don't push you. It is a different reality. And again, comparative like to consumer goods versus where you're buying something at a competitor like a Best Buy, and those people are incentivized and it feels different. So you are our customers and our partners. So it is a immediate feedback loop that like we NPS onboarding separately than a closing, which are two completely different experiences. And I need to know the difference in experience.
So Leo, how do you see the real estate industry overall changing in the next like 5 years for somebody who is either just getting in and wants to start a thriving business, or maybe somebody that wants to revamp their business and really, make their business top notch? What do you think are the things that they need to be learning and focusing on in order to make that happen here in the next 5 years, would you say?
So a couple things that I would say are directionally accurate, which is the one thing I care about. One is I don't think we're going anywhere. I think real estate is infrequent, expensive, and highly emotional, and has a ton of friction, right? So my obsession is to remove friction from your world, but from the transaction, there's still a ton of it. And I don't see it going away. And I'm talking about title, mortgage, insurance, inspections. We sell 50-year-old products that have a ton of problems, mold, cracks in the foundation, zoning. Like it's the highest ticket item someone can buy. And it is the single largest investment the average American makes. So that's important to note. So I don't think it's going anywhere. I think that technology affects everything. So the two things I've lived through, professionally speaking, is high-speed internet. Chase, you're probably too young to have sold houses before. Like you could look them up at home in the MLS, but I had to physically drive to my office to have access to listings at one point before like high-speed went to my condo versus my office. And then the second game changer was mobile, right? I actually drove around with a map book, like A17, drag my finger, make a left, and it was hazard to everybody. And mobile gave us both GPS, but also like MLS listings, right, in my pocket, which accelerated the transaction. And the reason I'm saying that is the only thing that is a constant is speed to lead, right? The fastest I could do a transaction in 2002 when I got licensed was probably 2 or 3 weeks, meaning a property hit the MLS. I had to check on Wednesday or Thursday. I would print stuff out. I'd circle it. I'd call my seller and buyer on the landline, schedule stuff. Like if it wasn't on by Wednesday when we made the tour and I got phone calls back, we probably didn't see it till the following weekend, right? And when we saw it, we'd present the offer. They'd meet me at the office. We used a contract that had rip away stuff that was white, yellow, and pink. And one copy was for me, one was for the seller, one was for the broker. Like I sound like a geezer saying all this shit, but it's true, right? And so what I'm telling you is the advancement in AI across cross functionality, right? From LLMs, writing contracts faster, writing descriptions faster, how consumers are searching on LLM versus search in Google, right? It's going to affect SEO. And it's the speed to lead, right? Like everyone in our company has access to Fixer.ai, which creates responses to inboxes contextually, meaning that if they ask, Chase, when can we talk? The drafted email has appointments available in your calendar when you open it, right? And so if you can respond 5 minutes faster, 10 minutes faster than your competitor, you win. So the agent who will be around will be the one who continues to create the most amount of value, right? So I think it's a mix of confidence and then notoriety, right? Like people need to know you're in the business and that you're competent. And then how do you stay in touch with them? So, if you're shy and don't want to be on social and create content, it's going to be kind of hard to be in real estate for the next 5 years. But just, I think the advice I would give to anyone in this industry currently or looking to be is to have a very authentic conversation with who you are and what your God-given talents are. Explore and be a student of who has successfully built a business by leaning into what are your talents. And one of the most dangerous things about attending seminars is you see someone on stage talking about how they crushed at cold calling, and then you have a high eye like me and realize that it is soul crushing and it would probably make you quit in two weeks. So explore the things that live inside of your talents.
Friends, if you're just joining us, we've been interviewing Leo Pareja. He's our CEO of eXp Realty. We're heading down the home stretch, Leo. I love how much you value your family and your time with your kids. To me, it shows that you know how to run a successful company and stay true to your values. And so, what do you want people to know about you, not just as being the CEO of an amazing company, but as a human being? Leo, I'm going to give you the last word, brother.
I will say that you're never ready, right? I think too many people see what I do and say, I'm not fill in the blank. And the best analogy that everyone listening to, if you're a parent, can relate to is taking your first kid home from the hospital, right? It's probably the scariest thing we've ever done, right? Where it's like, and who's going to keep this alive? Like, where is a responsible adult? And in every big moment in life, you like, this is your first time living, so you don't know what you don't know. And when you can remember that no one's ever been qualified for the thing they haven't done yet, I think it's this super awesome feeling of anything is possible.
Chase, I love that, don't you? We're not qualified, but we still can do it. We don't. Yeah. How can you like decompress that just for a moment, Leo? So we know we're not qualified.
So I will tell you, I was not qualified to sell someone a house at 19. I was not qualified to become the youngest broker in the history of Keller Williams as a principal broker at 21. I was not qualified to run a team. I was not qualified to be the number one agent in the world. I was not qualified to convince Fannie Mae to give me listings. I was not qualified to start a hard money lending company and set the duck to Wall Street before anyone else had ever done it ever. I was not qualified to raise $50 million of equity and run a tech company when I can't write a single line of code. I don't think I was qualified to run a publicly traded company.
Love it. Leo, we appreciate you, man. This has been great. Thank you for coming on. For those of you that are listening, this is a comment. We bring on amazing human beings onto this show. And if you need any help in Phoenix, call us. Call me or Chase. We're in the trenches every day. We're helping agents grow their business too. We're teachers. We're developers. We love helping agents win for their families. And we love helping buyers and sellers. So for that, Leo, thank you again, sir. Thank you for your leadership. We appreciate you deeply. For all three of us, we just want to say goodbye and have an awesome week.
Thank you.
Thank you.